This happened last fall. I was 17 and spent a lot of my time after school in that gray building we called Maplewood High. I didn't think much of the rumors that floated around, but there was something tempting about them. My friends warned me not to get involved, but I brushed it off, not realizing how serious they were. One afternoon, curiosity got the better of me. I wandered into the drama room. Dust hung in the air like a thick blanket. Then, I saw a Ouija board lying on a dusty shelf. My heart raced. I could almost hear my friends' voices telling me to leave it alone. But I didn't listen. I picked it up and laid the board on the floor. Cold air swirled around me. I thought it was just a draft from the cracked window, but I was wrong that I sat cross-legged, the board between me and the peeling walls. It felt strange, like I was being watched. Maybe I was just imagining things, I thought. I put my fingers on the planchette. Nothing happened at first. Then, lights flickered above me. I felt chills down my spine. I thought someone was behind me, but when I turned, I was alone. The board remained still, but whispers slithered around me softly at first, then louder. Names of students I'd never heard before flitted through my mind, faces flashing in my head. Then it all changed. The door creaked open, and a shadow moved across the floor. I turned fast. "Who is there?" I asked, breathing heavily. No one replied. My heart raced. I looked back at the board. The planchette was moving. It spelled out, "Help us." I froze. My hands felt sticky, like something unseen pulled at my fingers. I glanced over my shoulder, and a figure stood there, just outside the doorway. I blinked, and it vanished. What did I do? I thought. I stood up, but the whispers grew louder. My voice trembled as I stammered, "Who are you?" The temperature dropped around me, and a voice, clear as day, whispered behind me. "You're not alone." I felt a rush of panic. My hands nearly slipped off the planchette. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I stared into the darkness of the doorway, searching for the figure. It was gone, but the creepy feeling remained. The air felt thick, like I was being smothered. I don't remember how long I sat there. The lights flickered again, and the whispers turned into screams in a language I didn't understand. I was terrified, trapped in that room with whatever I had awakened. Finally, I backed away from the board and dashed toward the door. I blasted through it and didn't look back until I reached the parking lot. Now, I'm not sure what happened that day. Maybe it was all in my head, or maybe there is something lurking at Maplewood High that wanted to be found. But one thing is clear, I wish I had never touched that board. The next day, I couldn't shake what had happened. I was nervous, but I made a decision. I had to know what was going on. I found myself walking back to Maplewood High, my heart pounding with every step. With each crunch of gravel under my feet, I tried to calm myself. Maybe if I learned more about the stories, I could find some answers. The halls were mostly empty that Saturday. I passed by lockers that felt like they were watching me, a strange sensation creeping down my spine. I remembered the whispers last night. "Help us." I wished I could rewind and ignore that board. I made my way to the library. It was dimly lit, with books lined up like sentinels watching my every move. I searched for anything related to the school's history, focusing on the darker side of the past. My eyes fluttered over the titles until I found an old newspaper. It wasn't just about the school, it mentioned strange happenings and unexplained disappearances. I grabbed it and flipped through the yellowing pages, my pulse racing. The articles talked about a group of students who had vanished without a trace, last seen in the very same drama room I had entered. My throat tightened. Were they the ones still whispering for help? I needed to know more, but dread hung over me like a storm cloud. Suddenly, I heard a noise behind me, a soft rustling of pages. I spun around, but no one was there. Just the quiet library. I shook my head. This was getting to me. I tried to refocus, but the air felt thick, making it hard to breathe. Before I could regain my thoughts, I felt a presence standing over me. Not a shadow this time but something heavier. My heart raced again as I turned, ready for anything. That's when I saw it, a flicker of light, glowing under the table that I knelt down, my fingers trembling as I brushed aside the dust. Beneath, I found a silver locket, cool to the touch. It felt oddly familiar. I opened it, and a wave of cold washed over me. Inside was a picture of a girl I didn't recognize. Her eyes were sad, as if she had a story to tell. I dropped the locket, and it clattered on the floor. What had I stumbled into? A soft whisper reached my ears again, clearer this time. Find us. The library lights flickered, and I knew I had to leave. Panic bubbled inside me, but I also felt an odd connection to the girl in the locket. I gathered the newspaper articles and rushed out of the library. My heart raced with fear and curiosity. I knew I could no longer ignore the truth. There was more here than I understood. I needed to find out who the girl was and what happened to those students. As I stepped outside, I glanced at the back entrance to the drama room. It stood silent, but I could feel its pull, like it was calling me back. I took a deep breath, knowing I couldn't run away from this anymore. It was only just beginning. I hovered near the entrance to the drama room, my feet rooted to the ground. The whispers echoed in my mind, urging me to go inside. With a deep breath, I pushed the door open. The familiar scent of old wood and dust filled the air, but it felt so much heavier inside now that I turned to scan the room, half expecting to see something lurking in the shadows. The stage loomed large, its faded curtains hanging like ghosts. I stepped forward, my heart pounding louder than my footsteps. Just as I reached the edge of the stage, I spotted something on the floor, a small wooden board. My stomach dropped. A Ouija board. It looked worn, with chipped edges and letters barely legible. Memories of the school assembly warning us about the ban flooded my mind. Had someone ignored the rules? I bent down to pick it up but froze as I felt a chill run down my spine. Stop, a voice whispered, sharp and clear. I jerked back, almost dropping the board. It felt alive, pulsing with energy. Had that voice come from the board? I couldn't tell. I scanned the empty room, and panic surged through me. No one else was here. Ignoring the warning, I reached out and ran my fingers over the letters. A part of me was drawn to it, hungry for answers. I needed to know more about the students who vanished. Maybe this board could help. Before I could think any further, the lights flickered again, and the air turned frigid. My breath misted in front of me. The board slid from my hands, hitting the floor with a clatter. I quickly leaned over to pick it up, but it felt as if something was stopping me, holding me down. The whispers returned, now urgent. Help us, they cried, echoing off the walls. I shivered, my skin prickling, as if invisible hands were reaching out to me. This was beyond just stories. It was real, and I was at the center of it. Suddenly, my phone buzzed in my pocket, breaking the tension. I fished it out, heart leaping into my throat when I saw the caller ID, Mia. She was my best friend, always supportive and level-headed, but I hesitated to answer. Was this too much for her? Would she understand? Before I could decide, the lights flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness. I clutched my phone tightly, the screen illuminating my face. Then, a cold breath washed over me, like winter air sliding down my neck. I could barely think as panic surged, drowning out all reason. That's when I heard it, a soft voice, low and eerie, right in my ear. Join us, I bolted, stumbling backward, grabbing at the edge of the stage for balance. My instinct screamed at me to get out. I darted for the door, heart racing. All thoughts of answering Mia vanished. Just as I reached the door, the light flickered back on, and I was met with something that made my blood run cold. A figure stood by the back wall, half hidden in shadows. I couldn't see who or what it was, but I knew I couldn't stick around to find out. I pushed through the door and raced into the hallway, the echoes of the whispers following me like a haunting lullaby. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever I had uncovered was only part of a larger, darker story. And there was no turning back now. I sprinted down the dimly lit hallway, my breath coming in quick gasps. I glanced over my shoulder, the chilling sensation of being followed prickling at my skin. The whispers faded slightly, but my heart still hammered in my chest. I had to get out of the school. As I turned a corner, I collided with something solid. I stumbled back, a wave of relief crashing over me when I saw it was Mia. Her eyes widened in shock and concern. "Are you okay? I tried calling you," she said, her voice frantic. I don't know," I stammered, shaking. "I found a Ouija board in the drama room, and then something happened." I didn't know how to explain it all without sounding crazy. I felt like I was teetering on the edge of a cliff, unsure if I should jump into the dark unknown. "What do you mean? Did you use it?" Mia asked, her voice steady but with an undercurrent of fear. "No. I didn't. But I heard things whispers. I think it might be connected to the disappearances." I couldn't meet her eyes, afraid of what I might see there. Fear or disbelief? I wasn't sure which would hurt more. She frowned. "We need to get out of here. This isn't safe." Just then, the lights flickered again, and a group of students rounded the corner, careless and loud. They looked excited, their laughter echoing against the walls as they headed toward the drama room. My stomach twisted at the thought of them meddling with whatever darkness lurked within those walls. "Mia, we can't let them go in there," I exclaimed. "They don't understand what's at stake." Before she could respond, one of the students, a boy with tousled hair and a smirk, caught sight of us. "What's up, ladies? Are you coming to join the party?" he called out, gesturing toward the drama room. "No. Don't," I shouted, panic rising in my throat. They hesitated at my tone, but the boy seemed more intrigued than scared. "What are you so worried about? It's just some old board." He shrugged, oblivious to the danger. "Mia, we need to stop them," I whispered urgently. She nodded, determination hardening her features. "Let us go." We raced toward the group, but as we approached, everything changed. The air thickened, electricity crackling around us. I heard a sudden loud crash from the drama room, followed by the piercing sound of a scream raw and filled with terror. Mia and I exchanged horrified glances. The students' laughter evaporated, replaced by a deafening silence. I felt the hairs on my arms stand on end. Something was very wrong. "We have to get in there," Mia pressed, urgency coursing through her voice that I hesitated, dread pooling in my stomach. "But what if we're too late?" Our feet moved before we could think. We pushed through the crowd, shoving open the door to the drama room just as a wave of icy air billowed toward us. The figure was gone. The Ouija board lay on the floor, and the curtains swayed as if someone had just rushed through them. The students were nowhere to be found, only their scattered belongings remained, like remnants of a story left untold. Then I saw it, a piece of paper fluttering on the stage. I edged closer to it, heart pounding. That's when I saw it, a name, scrawled in a shaky hand. I recognized it. My pulse quickened, questions flooding my mind. What had they unearthed? Where were they now? I reached for the paper, but just as my fingers brushed against it, the lights dimmed, plunging us into darkness once more. The whispers returned, louder this time, echoing our dread. "Help us!" It was a command. Not a plea. And this time, I didn't know if I could run. The darkness enveloped us like a thick fog, swallowing every sound except the whispers. "Help us!" It echoed in my mind, gnawing at my sanity. I took a step forward, and Mia grabbed my arm, her grip tight. "Whatever is happening, we need to stay together," she whispered, fear reflected in her wide eyes. I nodded, though my instincts screamed at me to turn and run. Then, a shadow flickered in the corner of my eye, and my breath caught in my throat. "Did you see that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Mia nodded slowly, the realization dawning on us both. We're not alone. A sudden crash rang out from the other side of the room, making us both jump. My heart raced as the whispers intensified, swirling around us like a bad storm. I was about to bolt when Mia tugged me toward the stage where the Ouija board lay. "Look," she said, pointing. The board wasn't just a simple game, it was diabolical, its letters darkened, almost as if stained with something sinister. My stomach churned at the thought of what had happened here. "Do you think this is what caused everything?" I asked. Mia stepped closer to the board, her brow furrowed. "Maybe. But if so, we can't let anyone else touch it." She took a deep breath, and I could see her steeling herself for what came next. "Do you think the others were taken because they used it?" I asked, panic rising within me again. Mia opened her mouth to respond when a low, rumbling sound filled the room. Both of us stiffened, eyes darting around in the dark. A chill ran through me. "What is that?" I asked. Before she could answer, the sound grew louder. It vibrated through my chest, making me feel like I was in the middle of a horror movie. Electric tension crackled in the air, and I felt like I was being pulled in every direction, as though the darkness itself was alive and reaching for us. "Run!" Mia shouted, but I was frozen, a deer caught in the headlights of my fear. The board suddenly jerked across the floor with a life of its own, sliding toward the shadows in the corner. I tore my eyes away from the madness and grabbed Mia's hand, the panic snapping me back to reality. "We have to get out of here now." We sprinted for the exit, the door looming in the darkness. But just as we reached for the handle, I heard a voice, the same voice that had whispered before. "Help us!" But this time, it was in the room, right behind us. Mia and I whipped around, and that s when I saw it, an outline of a figure standing by the stage, barely illuminated by the flickering emergency lights. My heart stopped. "Who are you?" I managed to choke out, every instinct telling me to flee. But something kept me rooted, a combination of fear and morbid curiosity. The figure stepped closer, and I felt a chill deepen, like an icy claw raking up my spine. "Help us," it repeated, more insistent now. A sudden wave of realization crashed over me. This wasn't just a horror tale. We were tangled in a web of darkness, and we were the only ones who might be able to fight it. Around us, the world felt like it was unraveling. And we had to decide. We either faced what was ahead or became another name added to the disappearing list. I knew one thing for sure. We couldn't ignore it any longer. "Let us go," I whispered to Mia, but as I turned to grab her hand, I felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The darkness had its hold on me, and I didn't know if I could escape it. "Wait!" Mia cried out, her voice fading into the chaos that enveloped us. Then everything went black. I gasped as the darkness swallowed me whole, taking my breath and my sense of direction. Panic surged, squeezing tightly around my chest. I blinked, trying to adjust to the black void, but there was nothing, just an emptiness that felt hungry. "Mia!" I called. My voice barely pierced through the thick silence. I couldn't tell if she was even beside me anymore. I reached out, my hands brushing against something soft and warm. Relief washed over me as I realized it was her. "Mia, are you okay?" I whispered, my voice shaking. I think so," she replied, though there was uncertainty in her tone. "What just happened?" "I don't know. We have to get out of here." I could feel my heart thudding in my chest, fear fueling my every thought. Suddenly, a flicker of light pierced through the darkness. I squinted, trying to make sense of it. A faint glow began to reshape the environment, revealing a scene that had me frozen in place. The shadow we had seen earlier transformed into a figure, a girl who looked disheveled and lost. Her eyes were wide, glistening with tears that reflected the low light. I recognized her from school, one of the students who had vanished weeks ago. "Help me," she croaked, her voice barely above a whisper. Please, I felt a chill ski down my spine. What happened to you? I asked, taking a hesitant step forward. I'm trapped, she said, her voice trembling. They're coming back. You have to stop them. Who? Mia rasped, stepping beside me, her hand clutching my arm tightly. The girl's face twisted in terror, her gaze darting toward the edges of the growing light. The others, she said, her eyes widening even further. They want you to join them. You need to leave now. Before I could process her warning, the shadows rippled, swirling like smoke. Dark shapes began to emerge, a dozen figures shifting into view behind her, their forms flickering like broken TV screens. I could see their faces, twisted in anguish, mouths stretched in silent screams. Run! I shouted, but just as I turned to grab Mia's hand, the girl lunged forward. I felt the air shift, heavy with the kind of dread you couldn't escape. Don't leave me! She wailed, reaching for me. Her desperate tone pierced through my fear. I hesitated for the briefest moment, torn between understanding her pain and knowing that we didn't belong there. Mia, we can't help her. I yelled, my instincts pushing us to move. Just as I turned, the air around us grew thick. I felt a rush, like icy fingers gripping my throat. The whispers multiplied, growing louder, a cacophony pleading to be heard. Help us, help us! I grabbed Mia's hand tightly, and we bolted toward the direction of the light, hearts racing. As we ran, I could feel the darkness creeping behind us, clawing at my heels. Suddenly, the air crackled again, and I glanced back. The figures were closer, swirling in a monstrous dance. Their hands reached out, desperate and grasping. One of them, an older boy, eyes glazed, called out, "Stay with us. Don't leave." That terrible longing threatened to pull me back. I stumbled, my feet caught in the web of fear and uncertainty. Mia, keep going! I shouted, my voice cutting through the chaos. We surged forward, adrenaline giving us the strength to fight against the pull that in that moment, I recognized a single truth: to survive, we had to escape. But a question echoed hauntingly in my mind: what if we couldn't? Then, as we neared the exit, I felt the darkness surge around us, now palpable and suffocating. The light began to fade. My heart raced as I realized I had to make a choice, and there was no going back. Time stretched and twisted. In that heart-stopping moment, I saw something shimmering on the stage, something that might hold all the answers. I turned to Mia. We need to go back. But the darkness was closing in fast, and I knew we might not have enough time to escape. Before I could finish my sentence, a deafening sound erupted behind us. It was like 1,000 voices screaming in tandem. The pressure in the air intensified, wrapping around us like a vice. My throat tightened as I glanced back toward the figures. They were almost upon us now, and their eyes shimmered with something I didn't dare to name. Mia, trust me. I pulled on her arm, urging her toward the stage where the shimmer had caught my eye. It felt reckless, but it was the only idea that made sense. Maybe it held the key to breaking whatever was happening. We stumbled through the darkness, our breaths shallow and hurried. Every step felt like running through molasses. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to feel icy fingers clutching my collar. But the shadows seemed to hesitate, as if they feared the light we were heading toward. Finally, we reached the stage. It was an archaic wooden structure, worn and splintered from years of use. My heart sank when I realized there was nothing obvious there, no piece of magic to reveal the truth or save us from the ghosts of this place. Just dust and the lingering scent of mildew. But then, I noticed something flickering behind the curtains. Over there! I yelled, pointing as my pulse quickened. We rushed to the fabric, pulling it aside. What met my eyes sent a jolt through me. It was a Ouija board, its planchette resting poised above the letters like it had just been used. "This has to be why we're here," I whispered, eyeing the board with a mixture of dread and intrigue. "They're drawn to it," Mia breathed, staring wide-eyed at the board. "But why?" Before I could answer, a freezing wind rushed through the stage, extinguishing the weak light around us. The boards beneath our feet groaned, and shadows seemed to gather on all sides. "Mia, we need to get out," I shouted, grabbing her hand again. But she hesitated, eyes locked on the board. "What if we could talk to them?" she asked, her voice faltering. "Mia, now is not the time," I insisted, pulling her back. Yet I could see the temptation in her eyes, the curiosity overpowering her fear. Then everything went black. The darkness settled around us like a thick fog, muffling the sounds of the outside world. I could feel Mia's grip slip from my hand as she stumbled back, captivated by the shadows that called to her. "Mia! Don't!" I lunged forward, but my feet weighed heavy as if bound by chains. The voices started again, this time clearer. Join us, join us." The desperation clawed at me, and I felt my heart race with panic that I couldn't lose her too. As I fought against the pull, I reached out blindly, half of me terrified she was slipping away. Then I saw it, the planchette had started to move on its own, dragging across the surface of the board. The ghosts, whatever bound them, were yearning for something, and I had the sudden urge to decipher what they wanted. That S, when I saw it, the letters being spelled out before me. I squinted through the darkness, dread creeping over me. "Help! No!" I shouted, realizing the finality of their message. The air became charged, the weight of the words heavy upon us as I felt Mia's presence flickering, like a flame about to be snuffed out. And then I heard it, a voice rising above the chaos, calling not just to me, but to both of us. "Help us, you're the key." It was both a warning and an invitation. I felt the darkness shift, and for a moment, I stood at the precipice of understanding, grappling with what that could mean for us. Whatever happened next, I knew the choice lay in my hands. "Choose wisely, Mia," I whispered, uncertainty clawing at every ounce of my resolve, fearing the shadows and their promises. The weight of the unknown pressed down, and a new surge of urgency gripped my heart. I blinked rapidly, trying to make sense of my surroundings as the darkness throbbed around us. The Ouija board remained faintly visible, the eerie planchette still gliding over the surface, leaving its message unfinished. "Mia, we have to get out now," I shouted again, panic bleeding into my voice. Her gaze was still locked on the board, mouth slightly parted as if she were about to speak. "What if they really need help?" she whispered, her expression a mix of fear and fascination. It tore at me. Her curiosity was pulling her further into this haunted place that I took a step closer, trying to bridge the gap between us. "Mia, you don't know what you're inviting. This isn't a game. We're in danger." I glanced around, aware that the shadows slithered closer, ready to envelop us both. Suddenly, a loud thud resonated from backstage, followed by a low rumble that made the ground tremble beneath us. "What was that?" I stammered, instinctively reaching for her hand. My heart pounded, each beat urging us to escape. Before she could reply, the whispers surged louder, a chorus of voices that intertwined in a haunting melody. "Join us, help us," they called incessantly, the pressure of their urgency brushing against my skin like cold fingers. "Mia, we can't stay." I pulled on her arm again, desperate this time. "We need to leave." "Wait," she said, her voice rising above the chaos. "If they are trapped, we might be able to free them. We just have to listen." As the shadows closed in, a sudden wave of heat washed over me before disappearing as if the darkness had exhaled. "Mia, look." I pointed to the board, where the planchette had stopped moving. It pointed at a single letter, breaking the pattern of chaos. "R," I read, my voice quivering. "R, what does it mean?" I leaned in closer, realizing the board seemed almost alive beneath my fingertips. The air crackled, and the whispers turned to a wail of protest. The board vibrated under my touch, almost as if it were responding. "Help us," it echoed again, but this time there was a hint of desperation intertwined with longing. "Mia, it's changing," I said, fear licking at me. I felt the board shift beneath my hand, and I closed my eyes, squeezing them tight. I didn't want to know what was on the other side of this connection. But Mia stepped closer. What if this is our chance to help them? To understand what they want? I opened my eyes to see her resolve harden. Mia, you're not thinking straight. I urged, but the truth was, fear coursed through me. I could see the determination in her eyes, and I realized she was already halfway in. Then, quite suddenly, the stage lights flickered back to life. A dim glow washed over us, illuminating the darkness and the bizarre energy swirling around. What just happened? I gasped, my heart racing again in response to this unexpected change. A gust of wind swept through the stage, ripping the curtains to the side and revealing a dilapidated mirror behind them. In it, I caught a glimpse of shadowy figures reaching out, their mouths moving in silent screams. Fear clutched at my chest as I locked eyes with one reflection that seemed to focus solely on Mia. Mia. My voice trembled at the sight. I had to warn her, but the urgency sank into the pit of my stomach. She was about to make a choice that could change everything. I need to know. She cried. Her hand reached for the planchette, and in that moment, I understood. The whispers weren't just a beckoning, they were a warning. Mia, don't. But the words fell from my lips too late. The air shifted again, heavier now, filled with promises and despair. I knew we stood at a crossroads. Whether we would escape this mess or become part of it was the question hanging thickly in the air. As I watched Mia take her first step toward the board, reality twisted around us, and I braced for the impact of the choice we were about to make together. I felt my heart lurch as Mia's fingers brushed the planchette. It was like watching a slow-motion train wreck. Mia, stop. I screamed, but the words barely stirred the charged air. Her hand hovered just above the wooden piece, and before I could move to stop her, she pressed down. The moment her palm connected, the whispers intensified, forming a jarring cacophony. Help us, set us free, they echoed louder, an overwhelming buzz that filled the space. The board shuddered violently beneath her touch, and the lights flickered again, casting eerie shadows that danced wildly on the walls. Mia, please. I reached out, my fingers skimming the edge of the board, trying to pull her back. Instead, I felt a jolt, as if the board had struck a nerve. A cold wind rushed through the stage, extinguishing the dim light around us as darkness rushed in, swallowing everything whole. Read, the planchette jerked and glided to spell out the letters, each one feeling like a punch to my chest. My breath hitched in realization. It wanted us to read something, but what? Then the lights surged back, illuminating the stage in a harsh glare. I stumbled back, squinting against the brightness. Mia's eyes were wide, glazed over as if she were in a trance. Can you hear them? She asked, her voice hauntingly distant. Yeah, I hear them, Mia. But that doesn't mean we should listen. I tried again to shake her out of whatever stupor had gripped her. Then I spotted something on the floor, just beneath the board's shadow, a newspaper clipping. I leaned closer, my breath catching. The headline read, Local High School Haunted After Ouija Board Incident. My heart raced. So this wasn't just an urban legend, it had happened before. Without thinking, I pointed it out. Mia. Look. It's warning us. Her gaze shifted reluctantly to the article, and as she read the stories of students lost in the dark, something flickered in her eyes. But it was too late. The board vibrated again, and a deep, guttural sound spread through the air, filling it with dread. Mia, I think we need to leave. I urged, but the whispers morphed into a frenzied outcry, drowning out my voice. The mirror, the one reflecting those tormented faces, began to pulse, warping the glass into warped black shapes. Suddenly, something lunged from the mirror, a dark silhouette that twisted and turned, fingers reaching toward us. My heart dropped. It was coming for us. Panic surged within me as I grabbed Mia's shoulders, shaking her. We have to go. Now. Mia. I shouted, pulling her back, but she resisted. Wait. What if we can help them? I don't want to help them if it means getting stuck like them. I blurted out, terror clawing at my insides. They're not asking for help, they want something from us. That realization seemed to break through her haze, and hesitation flickered in her eyes. But all at once, the room grew colder, and the shadows converged. They loomed over us, pulsing with a dark energy that felt alive. Just as I thought we were done for, the board fell silent. The whispers abruptly stopped. An eerie calm enveloped the stage, almost as if the forces had retreated. But I didn't trust that silence. It felt like the calm before a storm. "Mia, come on." I pleaded again, grabbing her hand, ready to pull her away. But then, in the silence, a new whisper echoed softly, slicing through the air, "It's not over." A chill ran down my spine, and I knew something terrible was about to unfold. We were not out of danger yet. And with that, we turned toward the looming mirror, knowing we had to confront whatever dark truth lay behind it. I felt a cold grip around my heart as we stood before the mirror, its glass now a swirling portal to something horrifying. The shapes behind it pulsed like a heartbeat, their dark forms shifting and contorting in an almost hypnotic manner. "Mia, we need to go," I insisted, my voice trembling. What had started as an adventure had morphed into a nightmare where I could feel reality slipping away like water through my fingers, but Mia remained rooted to the floor, drawn in by the shadows whispering vague promises of freedom. "Do you hear that?" she murmured, her gaze transfixed. "They're calling out for us. Mia, those aren't voices asking for help. They're luring us in. If we stay, we could become part of this part of them." My heart raced, panic rising in my throat. I took a step closer, trying to break whatever grip the darkness had on her. "We can't help them. We have to save ourselves." Suddenly, the mirror rippled violently, its surface becoming a blur, and out of the madness surged one figure. It was a girl just like the one we had seen before. Her once sorrowful face twisted into something desperate, eyes bulging with the weight of agony. "Help us, you must help us," she cried, but before I could even respond, the shadows erupted toward us like a tidal wave. "Mia!" I shouted, realizing the urgency of our situation. In my frantic attempt to reach her, I felt an unseen force pull at my feet. I stumbled, trying to reach for her, but the shadows were overwhelming. "Mia!" I yelled again. She blinked as if waking from a dream, and I saw her eyes fill with clarity. "Right. We need to go." We both turned and sprinted towards the door. The echoes of ghostly wails chased us, a cacophony that felt like nails scraping against glass. But as we dashed forward, the door swung shut, slamming against the frame with a force I couldn't fully comprehend. "No. No." I pounded against the door, panic bubbling over as my heartbeat echoed in my ears. "This can't be happening. Step back," Mia urged, her voice breaking through my frantic thoughts. She turned toward the mirror just as another horrible figure began to emerge, clawing through the glass, an amalgamation of grief-stricken faces desperate for escape. With a deep breath, I focused on the board still lying upturned on the stage. "The board!" I yelled, dawning realization igniting my feet to move again. "If it brought them here, maybe it's the key to releasing them." "Are you crazy?" Mia shouted, but a glimmer of understanding flickered in her eyes. Before I could wait for her response, I lunged toward the Ouija board, the whispers intensifying around me. "What are you doing?" Mia cried, but I didn't have time for explanations. I dropped to my knees and pressed my trembling fingers against the planchette. "Let us talk," I said, directing my thoughts to the entities surrounding us. The instant contact was like a shockwave. The air vibrated, becoming taut as the planchette began moving intuitively, sliding across the board as if guided by an unseen force. Free?" I echoed, heart hammering at the possibility. At the edge of the stage, the figures writhed, their forms stretching and straining toward us, eyes gleaming with hope or something darker. "Free from what?" I asked, knowing full well I wasn't equipped for any of this. "Free us. The shadows shouted in unison. The unbearable weight of their despair bore down on us, a tidal wave of longing that nearly crushed me. Just when I thought we could reach an answer, the ground shuddered beneath our feet. The girls, those lost students, began to surge around us, their pleas intertwining with the whispers. "Help us, join us!" The air thickened with their desperate cries. Mia stepped back, clutching her head as the tormented figures clawed at the edges of her consciousness. "Don't listen!" I yelled. "We need to break the connection." But I could see it in her eyes. It was too late. She was slipping away. "Mia!" I reached for her, and in that moment, I knew. I couldn't just focus on being brave for me. I needed to be brave for both of us. "Help us!" The figures screamed, and as I focused my will on the board and my voice over their wails, I pushed back against their influence. "No. We can't help you, but we can free you." With an act of sheer will, I seized the planchette. "You need to find peace." The air crackled with tension as a storm erupted around us. The figures recoiled, as if trying to protect themselves from the light I could feel growing beside me. "You need to set her free." In a swirling vortex of shadows and bereavement, Mia found her voice again, stepping forward. "You don't want to be trapped. You were human. You can still choose. Step away from the light. Stay with us." Some of the shadows clamored, their voices flipping from wary to angry, their forms blurring in chaos. The board jittered violently, but somehow I felt a calm settle in my chest. "You have to let go. It's not too late." Mia's hand found mine. "Yes. Break the bond." She grasped tightly, energy flowing between us. And before I could process what happened next, the board exploded with light, forcing the shadows backward. A deafening roar enveloped us, the voices twisting into a singular cry full of emotion, the anguished wail of those trapped giving way to a tranquil carrying of spirits. I felt something shift, not in the world, but within us. "Travel into the light," I urged, and the figures, recognizing their release, seemed to descend into the ethereal glow enveloping the room. They faded, their grief lifting into something gentler, a breeze that whispered thank you. Finally, the glass of the mirror cracked, splintering into shards and reflecting the flickering lights of the now still air. The last remnants of the shadows fell away, and an encompassing silence wrapped around the room, but as the echoes of their cries faded, I knew we hadn't faced the whole truth. The darkness would not entirely give up, and questions lingered. Who had they been? What other horrors remained? Mia looked at me, eyes wide and breathless. "What just happened?" "I don't know," I breathed, my heart still racing, "but I think we were given a gift. We need to leave." As we made our way toward the door, again still slightly ajar, the shadows that had threatened to consume us were dissipating into memory. I stepped outside into the twilight, pulling Mia close. That we had survived, but I stared at Maplewood High, a ghost of its former self, wondering if we had truly escaped its grasp or merely scratched the surface of something much deeper and darker. I might never know, but I knew one thing for certain: I wouldn't ever set foot back in that school again. I moved to a different city after that. Sometimes I wonder if the nightmares still linger within those walls, if the whispers continue to call to anyone brave enough to respond. But mostly, I try not to think about it.